What is up, guys? This is the ViperStealth. Welcome to my video. I hope you enjoyed my intro with me using my new build for Title Update 6. So I logged into Division 2. Most of my builds were completely broken and I had to farm, do some number crunching and come up with a build that is absolutely insane and aims to break the game. So I'm going to share my favorite build with you. It's potentially my strongest build that I've ever made in Division 2. So I really hope you enjoy it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this in the near future. But let's get straight into it. So what you can see here is we've got a few ongoing directive, Alps, China Light and BTSU gloves. We've got 3 guns, a couple of skills and the grenade. I'm going to talk to you about all of these in detail. So I'll quickly cover the guns and why they're important. The first thing is we've got Sadist on an assault rifle. Now the assault rifle is important because that 29% damage you get for assault rifle, your skills actually do 29% extra damage to enemies when the enemy's armor is depleted, as long as you're holding the assault rifle. So that's a nice damage buff there. So Sadist, we get 30% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. Now a lot of people do go with Spike for their main weapon for skill builds. That is a good idea, can't really go too wrong with that. And I do have it on my secondary weapon, Spike there. But on my primary weapon I've gone for Sadist. I'll cover that in more detail, but 30% damage to bleeding enemies. In rhythm's really important, so when equipped, enemy kills have a 5% chance to refresh active skill cooldowns. I really like quick and instant skill cooldowns, so try and get in rhythm if you can. On the secondary weapon, as you've seen, we've got Spike and we've also got Rooted. So Rooted's really good for if you get into cover for a short amount of time, your skill damage is increased by 25% for 10 seconds. So that is a massive amount of damage, and make sure that you've got Rooted if you can. And then lastly, on your sidearm, we've got Recharged. So while equipped, skills deployed at full armor have 25% more duration charges and ammo. So we use the Hive on this build, so we're getting 25% duration, and charges as well, and all the bonuses that comes with Recharged. So it's definitely worth getting Recharged. For those of you that don't know, even if you're not using the weapon inside your hand, you still get access to the third perk on these weapons. So while I'm using this assault rifle, I still get the benefit of Rooted and I still get the benefit of Recharged. So that's why you want to make sure that you get these weapons with the third talent, even if you're not using them in your hand. As long as they're in your loadout, you're absolutely fine. So let's crack on with why I've used Sadist and why I've gone for 3-piece ongoing directive. Now the change has been quite cool here. The requirement of 2 ongoing directive gives you 25% bleed damage. So you can see that we're stacking up some nasty damage here. We've got 30% weapon damage to bleeding enemies, and now we've got 25% extra damage to bleed enemies. So if you're bleeding, you're going to die very quickly to my build. We've got the Hive here. Now Hive has been updated that it applies bleed status effect on affected targets. So this is the Stinger Hive, and I'll go into this in more detail, but you can see from my loadout that this Hive is what sets the status effect of bleeding. So you can see that these synergize really well. There's not too much to talk about with the ongoing directive loadout. We do have a fairly decent damage to elites here at 49%. You've got skill power, but you don't need a lot of skill power in this build because I've maxed out the technician specialization skill tree, so you can go for cooldown reduction instead. But do try and look for a high damage to elites because it just really helps with the damage output that you're doing. Moving on to vest, not too much to talk about. Try and pick one up that has, lots of yellows, because you do want lots of yellow attributes in your build. But ongoing directive do occasionally drop decent rolls for skill power and explosive damage. So I've gone for my vest with those 2. I've recalibrated a decent amount of skill power onto my vest and also high explosive damage as well. Mods aren't too important. I've gone for a little bit of health, assault rifle damage and explosive damage mods. Pretty much if I've got any yellow capacity, you can see me stacking the explosive damage there and the explosive damage there. It all helps add up to some nasty seeker damage. Lastly, on the holster, not too much to talk about here, but we have got 49% skill haste and 500 skill power. So again, just racking up those yellow attributes and racking up the skill power for the overall build. We've got a couple of offensive mod slots, stuck them both into kind of weapon damage to do with LMG and assault rifle. And then moving into the other areas. So The reason why I've not gone for a 4-piece, which would give me the right tools for killing an affected enemy status, so when you kill an enemy that's affected by a status effect, you get explosive special ammo. So that's really cool, but in my personal opinion, it's not worth getting another ongoing directive piece to get this talent over what I've got for my bag and my knees. So let me go into detail about what these are. Firstly, knees, try and find yourself some China Light with calculated. So I have had this conversation with so many people on Division. So many people have tried to correct me and they're actually wrong. Calculated actually works when you throw your mines out. So your mines can earn another set of mines an instant skill cooldown. So let me explain how this works. When you throw your mines and they start rolling towards the enemy, it normally takes about 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds, but your mines go on to cooldown. They do not need to touch the enemy. They don't need to travel a certain amount of distance. As long as they are locked onto enemies, as soon as they start rolling towards the enemies, you'll notice that they go onto cooldown. So as long as you're in cover, every skill kill that you're getting with your mines, with each of your mines, contributes a 10% skill cooldown to the next set of mines. So it really racks down that cooldown. So calculated is amazing. Don't throw the mines at the enemy because they will not have enough time to go into the cooldown. They'll just blow up the enemy straight away and then you'll be waiting for the entire cooldown. Throw them just far enough away from the enemy so that they can still lock onto them, but they need to travel a little bit of distance and go into cooldown, and you'll find that your mines are getting activated way sooner. The benefit of China Light Industries, 10% explosive damage, so that's good for your mines, and I've got 28% skill haste here. That's the highest I've managed to get in 1,200 hours of playing this game, but maybe you'll be able to find higher than that. And then we've got the bag. So this bag is pretty much god roll. We've got 2 attributes here, 1 skill haste, 1 skill power. So very happy with that in the loadout that I've got. And then the talents that are equally as important, we've got destructive, so that's 40% explosive damage, and we've got skilled. So skill kills have a 25% chance to reset skill cooldowns. Now, if you remember what I said a second ago about how calculated works, if you're behind cover and you throw your mines out and you let them go onto cooldown as they're targeting enemies, it can be absolutely fantastic because not only is calculated working in your favor, but skilled is also working in your favor. So you've got 25% chance of an instant skill cooldown from each mine that rolls out. And I've tested this, it does work. It's not for the total amount of mines, it's per mine you get the chance to proc skilled, and on top of that you've also got calculated, so your cooldown times are ridiculously short, and on top of that you've got destructive, so they're doing decent amount of damage. Now another viable perk here is tech support. I do have a bag with tech support, which is pretty good. So I've got tech support, skill haste and destructive. Both of them are entirely viable. The reason why I've gone for this one is just because I've got skill haste and skill power. It's quite nice, and I do prefer skill cooldowns rather than doing a little bit more damage because my mines kill everyone anyway. So I'd rather have them quicker rather than them doing high amounts of damage. And the last piece of gear that I've got to talk to you guys about is the BTSU gloves. So these gloves now drop they're pretty much anywhere, which is really cool. Before Title Update 6, they used to drop exclusively from Black Tusk enemies. Now they can drop from any enemy. It helps if you hunt the loot in the correct zones, following the Title Update 6, where you can go after targeted loot now. But there's not too much to go into with the exotic gloves. The reason why I've gone for these gloves instead of gloves with Terminate or something like that is because that once you apply a status effect, you can see that you do significant amount of damage. So firstly, you get 50% status effect duration and 50% skill haste on any skills that apply status effects. So that Hive is loving this completely. And on top of that, when you set a status effect on an enemy, you get 10% skill damage for each yellow attribute that you have in your loadout. So I've got 11 attributes that are yellow in my loadout, so I'm doing 110% more skill damage when my gloves are active. My gloves are active pretty much all the time because my Hive sets set status effects, so it's incredible. So really, I can't put anything else better in this build than the BTSU gloves. They're absolutely devastating in a skill build, especially one that sets status effects. Now, moving on to the skills. Now, this is arguably what this build is all catered towards and all focusing on. Let's start with the Hive. So, as I mentioned earlier on, the Hive does set a bleed status effect. That's not the only reason I use it. As you saw from the intro video, this is absolutely devastating. The refill speed is amazing. It's like instant cooldown pretty much. Like every 2 seconds I'm getting a new like Hive charge. It goes up to 16, but because I've got recharged, if I'm at full armor, then I get 18 charges. The range has got to be seen to be understood. 14 meter radius, that's 28 meter circumference. It's wide enough to put in the middle of a large room and your Hive attacks everybody. It's absolutely insane. I can't express this enough to you that when you use the Hive with this kind of range, you'll be laughing your ass off at how far the range is and how the enemies just drop so quickly. It's absolutely incredible. The duration, not too much of an issue. Once I put the Hive down, it does the job. It sets the status effects, it devastates the enemies, and 50 seconds doesn't matter so much because my mines are constantly getting kills, so it resets the status and the cooldown effects and everything. So that's cool. The damage is also good, 130,000 for enemies. You'll see in a second on the shooting range how quickly I melt through enemies like the butter, the hot knife through butter. They just absolutely get destroyed. And just to show you the mods that I've gone for really high damage here. So it's almost a 2,900 skill power requirement of 96% damage, so really high. The next one I've got 97% extra charges, and that's massive. And then lastly, the radius. So 2,400 skill power requirement is pretty huge, but 80% radius is just absolutely huge. That's what gives me that massive 28 meters circumference and 14 meters radius. It's absolutely devastating. Moving on to my mines, there's not too much to talk about here, other than the fact that if I went for tech support instead of skilled, you can get more mine damage, but the mine damage, base damage, is 473,000. Now, I'm not a stranger to be able to rack up 1 million damage here when the mines actually go in, when I've got spike and, you know, rooted active and the BTSU gloves are all kicking in and all sorts of stuff. It does go up to 1 million. The number of mines I've got as a base is 9, but if I deploy it when I've got recharged, I think I get something like 11 or 12 mines that go out. It's amazing. And when the BTSU gloves and all the skills kick in, it's, like I said, 1 million, so it's crazy. I've gone for skill haste here. That's got me down to a 14.6 second cooldown. I'm never waiting that much time for my cooldowns because I make my mines work for themselves and earn another cooldown. And I've also got skill haste at 198%, so you know that's really fast if I don't get many kills. But again, they're coming back soon, and the damage and the extra mines, it's just devastating. So in a couple of my other vids, when I've shared skill builds, some of you said, you know, that yes, your build's good, but what about when you go against the Black Tusk and they release EMP? Your skill build becomes useless, and that's absolutely not true. We've got EMP grenade here, so if you've got any turrets or any warhounds that just, you know, annoying your team, you can just throw one of those and it disables it until the EMP status effects stops affecting your team. And on top of that, you've got the specialization weapon. So because I'm getting so many multi kills on the grenades and everything, I've pretty much got limitless specialization ammo, and as soon as I'm EMP'd, well, that's specialization time. I just whip it out and start firing rockets at everyone, and it's just firework night. It's just beautiful. So this is my build. There's not too much more to talk about here. It's absolutely insane. It's so much fun to play. The Hive has so much range, it does so much damage. It's incredible. The mines just blow everyone up. So let's go and show you the kind of damage that I'm talking about here. We're at the shooting range, the area of effect shooting range, and I'm going to back this up to very hard. You can notice on my Hive, I've got 18 charges there, but when you look at the Hive here, it says 16. That is the benefit of recharged. So what I'm going to do is just throw this in. Now you can see pretty much everything is lighting up orange. That's because of my insane range with this Hive. I'm going to throw this in. It's going to attack everything. But you'll see what I'm talking about here. Everything's dead. 1.8. So you can see how quickly it works. Now the Hive's going on cooldown, and you can also see how quickly it's recharging. So at any point, if I wanted to, I could throw it out again. So it's pretty much unlimited. The cooldowns are insanely fast. It works very well. Now my Seeker Mines, if I throw those in, and I'm going to stick for Rooted, it's just, you can see it's absolutely devastating. You know, the mines go in and demolish everything. The Hive helps the mines be more powerful. It really does bounce off each other. It's an absolutely fantastic build to use. Please give me a like and a subscribe if you like this build and you want to see more builds like this in the future. But really hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Ready to blow some motherfuckers up.